All right, let's dive into this world of assistive robotics. We've got some fascinating research papers and articles for this deep dive, exploring both the cutting edge tech and some really thought provoking questions about how these robots will actually fit into our lives.
Yeah, it's a really hot topic right now, and you're right, the implications go way beyond just, having cool gadgets around.
Absolutely. So, we're going to be looking at how assistive robots are changing things for people with impairments, helping them with everyday tasks. And then we'll kind of broaden our view to see how this tech is also playing a role in elder care and supporting people facing cognitive challenges.
I think what's really fascinating about this is it's not just about building a robot that, works. It's about the human element, like really understanding people's needs, perceptions, anxieties even, as robots start to become part of our personal lives.
Right. It's like, are we ready for robot helpers in our homes and hospitals? And what will that relationship actually look like? But first, let's kind of break down how assistive robotics differs from just plain old automation. Why is this such a big deal?
I think if you think back to the robots that we're used to seeing, mostly in factories, doing the same thing over and over in a very controlled space, assistive robotics brings robots into our everyday environments, like our homes, hospitals, even out on the streets. And the game changer here is the level of interaction.
So it's not just a machine doing a job, it's a machine interacting with us, almost like a partner.
Precisely. Carme Torres, who is a leading researcher in this field, she argues that this is a huge leap, even bigger than the changes that we saw with the agricultural or industrial revolutions. We're not just making tasks more efficient, we're actually creating machines that adapts at different places, different situations, and even different people.
And she emphasizes the importance of customization in her research, right? Why is that so critical?
Yeah, and it all boils down to meeting individual needs. Torres points out that assistive robots need to adapt not just to various environments, but to each person that they assist.
Yeah.
That's a pretty tall order.
Yeah, it makes total sense, though. I mean, we're not all the same. We all have our own, preferences, limitations. How do researchers actually make a robot adaptable like that?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, and Torres's work gives us a great overview of some of the challenges and breakthroughs that are happening right now. And one of the biggest hurdles, I think, is communication. For these robots to be truly useful, they need to understand what we're saying, what we're typing, even our gestures. It's like they need to learn a whole new language of human behavior.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine a robot trying to figure out my crazy hand gestures when I'm trying to explain something.
It's playing the picture, but that's the reality that researchers are tackling. And not only do robots need to understand us, but they also need to communicate back in a way that we get. It's not just about beeps and flashing lights anymore. We're talking about robots using voice, text, images, even gestures themselves. It's a whole multisensory approach.
Wow, so it's like a two-way conversation, not just a one-way command. Are there any real-world examples of this kind of robot communication already happening?
Absolutely. There's a project called Socrates, and it's focused on assisting people who are experiencing mild cognitive decline. And they've created this cognitive training app where a robot interacts with the user through different methods, through voice, pictures, even physical guidance. And the cool thing is, the robot system can actually choose the best way to interact based on, the situation and the user's needs at that moment.
So it's like a personalized robot tutor that's adjusting their teaching style to each student. That's incredible.
Yeah, and this is just one example of how researchers are tackling this communication challenge. And another big one is teaching robots to learn and adapt, just like humans do, through practice and feedback.
So we're talking about robots, like practicing tasks over and over again, like a kid learning to ride a bike.
That's the idea. And one of the techniques that they're using is called reinforcement learning. It's kind of like training a dog with treats. The robot gets rewarded for doing things correctly, and over time, it learns to perform the task better and better.
That's fascinating. So is there like an example of that in action?
There is. Torres's research highlights this project where they use this technique to teach a bimanual robot. So that's just a fancy way of saying a robot with two arms, how to fold a polo shirt, and it's more complex than it sounds, believe me. They started by showing the robot roughly how to do it, and then they let it refine that technique through trial and error. So there's a camera that's watching the robot's movements, and then there's this special program that scores its performance so it knows how it's doing, and it can keep improving.
It's amazing to think that a robot can learn such a delicate task. But I can also see how challenging that must be. To teach a robot to handle something as soft and unpredictable as fabric. It's not like working with, solid metal parts in a factory.
You've hit on a major hurdle. I mean, fabric can bunch up, wrinkle, shift in ways that are really hard to predict, even for humans.
Right. So how are researchers tackling that?
Well, they're using some pretty ingenious algorithms and computer vision techniques. For example, Tortoise's team, they're using a combination of special 3D images and machine learning to help robots see and manipulate clothing. So picture a huge database of clothing items, each with its different parts labeled, like the collar, the cuffs, the hemline. The robot learns to recognize these parts, which then helps it figure out how to grasp and fold the garment correctly.
Wow, it's like giving the robot a fashion sense.
Oh,
But these skills have applications beyond just folding laundry, right?
absolutely. I mean, imagine robots helping people with mobility issues get dressed. Projects like Clothild and iDress are working on exactly that.
Okay, so we've covered communication, learning, handling flexible objects. What other challenges are at the forefront of assistive robotics research?
Well, safety is a huge one. We can't have robots bumping into things or malfunctioning, especially when we're talking about robots interacting with, vulnerable people. And this is where this concept of compliant behavior comes in.
Compliant behavior, what does that mean for a robot?
So it basically means the robot is designed to yield to outside forces. So imagine a robot arm that gently stops if it bumps into you, instead of just plowing right through.
Yeah.
It needs to be able to sense and react to its surroundings to, make sure that it's not going to cause any harm.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not just about, avoiding collisions. It's about making sure the robot responds safely to any kind of physical contact, especially when working with someone who might not have a lot of strength.
Exactly. And researchers are developing special force controllers that allow robots to, sense and respond to touch and pressure. For instance, Torres's team created this system that takes friction into account, and it allowed their robot to safely perform tasks like putting on a scarf or shoes for a person.
It's like a robotic valet helping you get ready in the morning. But you mentioned that safety is even more critical in healthcare settings.
Right, and that kind of brings us to the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
How is society reacting to all of this? Are we ready for robots to be this integrated into our lives?
We were talking about how society is reacting to this rise of robots in our daily lives, and it's not just about the tech itself, right? It's about how we perceive it and whether we're ready for such a big change.
Yeah, it's a crucial point, and there's this really insightful study from Sweden that I think is relevant here. It looked at the challenges of introducing care robots into elder care specifically, and it highlights how important it is to consider not just the technical aspects, but the social and ethical dimensions as well. Like, a robot might work perfectly fine in a lab setting, but is it actually accepted and trusted by the people it's designed to help?
Yeah. Will people actually feel comfortable having a robot caregiver, especially when you think about older adults who maybe are more set in their ways or, have concerns about technology? What did this study actually find?
One of the most striking findings is that, the word robot itself, it carries a lot of baggage. It can evoke these negative images, particularly in the context of elder care. Like, people might think of cold, impersonal machines replacing human connection, which is, the opposite of what we want.
So it's almost like how we talk about these robots is important, framing them as helpful tools instead of replacements for human caregivers.
Exactly. The study emphasizes focusing on the benefits of assistive technology rather than the robot label, really emphasizing how these robots can actually support and enhance human care, not replace it.
I see what you mean. But even if we change the language, there's still the issue of people just not knowing enough about these robots. How can they trust something that they don't understand?
Right, and that's another challenge that the study brings up, these knowledge gaps. Maybe people just aren't familiar with what care robots can actually do and how they can help. So there's a real need for education and awareness building, We need to show people real-world examples of how these robots are empowering older adults and improving their quality of life.
Show, don't tell, right. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that, some people do have valid concerns about these robots. Will they really replace human caregivers? Will they infringe on people's privacy or autonomy? These are fears that I think need to be addressed directly.
Absolutely. And the study doesn't shy away from those tough questions. It calls for transparency and open discussion about the ethical implications of these technologies. People need to be informed about how these robots work, what data they collect, how that data is used. It's about building trust, not just kind of, pushing technology on people.
Transparency is key, and I imagine it's also crucial to involve older adults and their caregivers in the design process, like right from the start. Make sure that the technology is truly meeting their needs, not just the needs that engineers in a lab imagine.
You're spot on. The study really hammers home the importance of user-centered design. Bring older adults and caregivers to the table, get their input, their feedback. This helps ensure that the robots are not only effective, but also acceptable and ideally, something people actually want to use.
So this Swedish study paints a pretty clear picture of the complexities of integrating assistive robotics into elder care. It's not just a technical challenge, it's a social and ethical one, too.
And that leads us perfectly to a paper that I think digs a little deeper into those social and ethical considerations. It outlines what it calls 6 grand challenges in socially assistive robotics areas where research and development are really critical to make sure these robots truly benefit humanity.
6 grand challenges. Okay, tell me more. I'm all ears.
So the first one is what they call embodiment, which gets at how a robot's physical form influences how we interact with it. Think about it. Does a robot's appearance make us more or less likely to trust it? Does a humanoid robot feel comforting or creepy?
That's such a good point. I can see how a robot that's too human-like might actually make people feel uncomfortable, while a robot that's too machine-like might seem, cold and impersonal. It's all about finding that right balance.
Exactly, and that balance might be different for different people in different contexts. So researchers are experimenting with different designs, trying to find that sweet spot where the robot is both functional, but also aesthetically something that people are comfortable interacting with.
I'm also really intrigued by the idea of robots having, personalities. Is that really a thing? Are researchers working on that?
They are. That's another one of the grand challenges. Think about it. Would a more extroverted robot be better at, say, motivating someone in physical therapy? Could a more introverted robot be calming for someone with anxiety? So, researchers are exploring whether tailoring a robot's personality to the user could make it more effective.
That's mind-blowing. I never thought about robots having personalities before. It's almost like giving them a unique character, just like a human. But what about something even more complex, like empathy? Can robots really understand and respond to human emotions?
That's the third grand challenge, empathy. It's about robots not just recognizing our emotions, but actually responding to them in a meaningful way. Imagine a robot that could sense that you were having a bad day and offer, words of encouragement or even play your favorite music. That kind of emotional intelligence could be incredibly powerful, especially for people who are lonely or isolated.
Yeah, that makes me wonder if a robot with a more engaging personality might actually be better at recognizing and responding to those human emotions. Is there a link there, do you think?
That's a really great question, and I think there could be. If a robot can create a sense of connection and trust with a person, it might be easier for it to pick up on those subtle emotional cues and respond in a way that feels genuine and supportive. It's definitely an area that's ripe for more research, for sure.
Okay, so we've got embodiment, personality, and empathy. What are the other 3 grand challenges?
The fourth one is what they call engagement. It's about keeping users interested and motivated to interact with a robot over time. Think of it this way. A robot might be helpful at first, but if it's boring or repetitive, people are going to lose interest pretty quickly. So researchers are exploring ways to make robots more engaging, using things like gamification, storytelling, personalized content to keep users coming back for more.
It's like the difference between a chore and a game, right? Nobody wants to interact with a robot that feels like a chore.
Exactly. And then the fifth challenge is adaptation. It's about the robot learning and adjusting to individual needs and preferences over time. Think of it like, a personalized training program that's constantly evolving to meet the user's goals. This is key for ensuring that the robot provides truly individualized assistance, just like a human caregiver would.
So the robot isn't just static, it's actually constantly learning and refining its behavior based on the user's feedback. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And then finally, there's transfer. And this refers to the ultimate goal of socially assistive robotics, for skills that are learned with the robot to actually transfer to real-world situations. For example, if someone is using a robot to practice walking after an injury, the hope is that those skills will carry over to their everyday life, not just in the controlled environment of a therapy session.
It's like taking what you've learned in the classroom and applying it to the real world. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. So these 6 grand challenges, I think, really highlight just the breadth and depth of research in socially assistive robotics. It's not just about building machines. It's about understanding human needs and creating robots that can truly connect with us, on a social and emotional level.
Yeah, you've summarized it beautifully. And speaking of human needs, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how these robots are actually being used in healthcare. We discussed the Endorse project earlier, which is developing this fleet of modular robots for hospitals. But what other exciting initiatives are kind of pushing the boundaries in this field?
Oh, there are tons. One area that's seeing a lot of innovation is surgical robotics. Robots are already assisting surgeons with minimally invasive procedures, allowing for smaller incisions, greater precision, and faster recovery times. It's kind of a win-win for both the surgeons and the patients.
So we're talking about robots literally performing surgery. It sounds straight out of science fiction.
It does, but this is the reality. And the technology is only getting better. New robots are being developed with even greater dexterity and flexibility, allowing them to perform increasingly complex procedures.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a huge relief for patients. Smaller incisions mean less pain, less scarring, and a much faster return to normal life.
Exactly. And that faster recovery time also frees up hospital beds and resources, which ultimately benefits the healthcare system as a whole.
So beyond surgery, what other healthcare applications are kind of on the horizon?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of excitement is rehabilitation robotics. Picture robots assisting patients with physical therapy, after a stroke, a spinal cord injury, or any other condition that limits mobility. They can help patients regain strength, coordination, range of motion.
Oh, I've seen videos of those robots. It's amazing how they can actually guide and support patients through those exercises. It's almost like having a personal trainer, but a robot.
It is. And what's even more exciting is that these robots can provide personalized therapy, adapting to the patient's individual needs and progress. It's like having a 247 physical therapist that can adjust the therapy program in real time based on your specific needs.
And I bet the data that these robots collect could be incredibly valuable for doctors and therapists. They could track the patient's progress, identify areas where they're struggling, and even adjust the treatment plan accordingly.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about the robot providing that physical assistance, it's also about the data that it's gathering.
Right.
This data can help doctors and therapists make more informed decisions and provide more targeted care, which ultimately leads to better outcomes for the patient.
So it's really incredible how robots are not just providing direct care, but they're also generating this valuable data that can advance medical knowledge and improve the healthcare system as a whole.
It is. And speaking of data, one of the emerging trends in healthcare robotics is using AI and machine learning to analyze patient data and even help with diagnosis.
Wait a minute, are we talking about robots replacing doctors now? That's a little scary.
Not exactly. It's not about replacing doctors. It's about giving them powerful tools to do their jobs even better. AI can analyze huge amounts of data, spotting patterns and connections that might be missed by the human eye. This can help doctors diagnose diseases earlier, personalize treatments, and even predict potential health risks.
So it's more about collaboration than competition, right? AI and robots working alongside doctors to provide that best possible care.
Exactly. AI can handle those data-heavy tasks, freeing up doctors to spend more time with their patients, really listening to their concerns, providing that human touch that's so essential in healthcare.
It's a great example of how technology can be used to enhance human capabilities, not replace them.
Precisely. And it's just one of the many ways that assistive robotics is poised to really revolutionize healthcare in the years to come.
So we've seen how robots are making a difference in healthcare, and now I'm curious about elder care. We talked earlier about some of the challenges and perceptions surrounding robots in that field, but what are some specific ways that these robots are actually being used to support older adults as they age?
That's a great question, and it's an area where assistive robots are already making a tangible difference. As we discussed earlier, the world's population is aging, and the demand for elder care services is, skyrocketing. Robots have the potential to help bridge that gap, providing assistance with daily tasks, social interaction, even cognitive stimulation.
It's all about enabling older adults to live, more fulfilling and independent lives, even as they face those age-related challenges. Can you give us some concrete examples of how these robots are being used in elder care?
Absolutely. One very common application is robots that assist with activities of daily living. Things like bathing, dressing, toileting. These are essential tasks that can become increasingly difficult as we age, especially if we're dealing with, mobility limitations or cognitive decline.
Right, and it's not just about the physical difficulty, right? These are also very personal tasks that can be, embarrassing or frustrating to need help with.
You're exactly right. And that's where robots can make a huge difference. They can provide the necessary assistance while preserving a person's dignity and privacy. For instance, there's a robot called Bestic that helps people with limited arm movement feed themselves.
Oh, I've heard of Bestic. It's that robotic arm that allows people to control their own eating even if they can't use their hands very easily.
That's right. It gives people back a sense of control and independence and allows them to, enjoy that simple pleasure of a meal without having to rely on someone else. And then there's a robot called Poseidon that assists with bathing. It can help with tasks like washing and rinsing, making the bathing process safer and more comfortable for both the older adult and the caregiver.
I can see how these robots would be a real game changer, for both older adults and their families. They can reduce the physical strain of caregiving, allow older adults to maintain their dignity and autonomy.
Absolutely. And it's not just about physical assistance either. Robots can also provide companionship and social interaction, which are crucial for mental and emotional well-being, especially for older adults who might be living alone or experiencing cognitive decline.
We talk about social interaction being so important for people with cognitive impairments, but it's really essential for everyone, especially as we age.
I completely agree. And robots can help fill that need in a variety of ways. Some robots are designed to engage in conversations, while others can play games, tell stories, or even provide reminders for social events.
I've even heard of robots that can sing and dance. They can really bring joy and entertainment into people's lives.
That's right. They can really add a spark of fun and laughter to the day, which
Yeah.
can be so beneficial for older adults, especially those who might be feeling isolated or down.
And I'm also curious about robots that can help with, cognitive stimulation. Are there any out there that are specifically designed for that purpose?
There are. For example, some robots can lead cognitive exercises like memory games and puzzles, which can help keep older adults mentally sharp and engaged. It's like having a personal brain trainer.
Oh, I love that. And I've also heard that some robots can even provide like personalized music therapy, which can be very beneficial for people with dementia.
You're right. Music can be incredibly powerful. It can evoke memories, stir emotions, and even help reduce anxiety and agitation. And robots can deliver that therapy in a really personalized way, adapting to the individual's preferences and responses.
It's really amazing to see how assistive robots are addressing so many different aspects of elder care, from that physical assistance to the social interaction, the cognitive stimulation. It's a really holistic approach to care, and it's really changing how we think about aging.
It is. It's about empowering older adults to live richer, more fulfilling lives. And it's about supporting those who care for them.
So we've seen how robots are making a difference in healthcare and elder care. Now, let's kind of dive a little deeper into how these robots are supporting individuals with cognitive impairments. We've kind of touched on this throughout our conversation, but I want to explore some specific examples and really see how this technology is empowering people with, diverse needs and abilities.
Yeah, happy to delve into that. It's a really exciting area where assistive robotics is showing, incredible promise. As we've discussed, robots can offer a wide range of support for people with cognitive impairments, from, help with daily tasks to social interaction to cognitive stimulation.
I'm especially interested in robots that can help with, memory and cognitive function. Are there any that are kind of designed specifically for that purpose?
Absolutely. And they're getting more and more sophisticated all the time. One example is Pero, a robot that's designed to look and feel like a baby harp seal.
Oh, I've seen Pero. It's adorable. It's hard to believe it's a robot.
I know, it's incredibly lifelike. And it's actually much more than just a cute toy. Research has shown that Pero can have really significant therapeutic benefits for people with dementia. It can reduce anxiety and agitation, encourage social interaction, and even improve mood and cognitive function.
Wow, so it's like a furry little therapist.
Yeah.
It's amazing how something as simple as a, cuddly robot can have such profound impact.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there are other robots that can provide more direct cognitive assistance. For example, there's a robot called Nail that can be programmed to give reminders for, appointments, medications, and other important tasks.
That's so helpful. I can imagine that would be a lifesaver for someone who's struggling with memory problems. It could really give them back a sense of independence and control over their lives.
Exactly. And now it can also be used for personalized cognitive training exercises, like memory games and puzzles. It's not just about reminding, but about actively engaging the brain and helping to, maintain cognitive function.
So it's like having a personal brain trainer, but in robot form. And I'm guessing AI and machine learning are playing a big role in making those training programs even more personalized and effective.
You're right. The robot can learn the user's strengths and weaknesses, adjust the difficulty of the exercises, and even provide encouragement and feedback along the way.
It's all about meeting the person where they are and helping them to achieve their goals, whatever those goals may be.
That's the beauty of assistive robotics. It's about empowering people to live their best lives, regardless of their abilities or challenges.
Now, I'm also curious about robots that can support social interaction for people with cognitive impairments. We talked about that study earlier that highlighted how important social connection is for this population. What are some examples of robots that are actually being used in this way?
That's a great point. Social interaction is so vital for mental and emotional well-being, and it can be especially challenging for people with cognitive impairments. Luckily, there are robots that are designed specifically to foster that social interaction. One example is Casper, which is a humanoid robot that's being used to help children with autism develop social skills.
Caspar, I've heard of that one. It's the one that looks a little bit like a child itself, right? How does it work?
Yeah, Casper is designed to be engaging and interactive, but in a very controlled and predictable way that can be, comforting for children with autism. It can make eye contact, respond to touch, engage in simple conversations.
So it's kind of providing that safe and comfortable space for children to practice social skills without feeling, overwhelmed or pressured.
Exactly. And research has shown that interacting with Caspar can help children with autism improve their communication, social interaction, and even their play skills.
That's amazing. And while Casper is designed for children, I could imagine that this type of robot could also be really beneficial for adults with cognitive impairments, especially those who are experiencing social isolation.
Absolutely. Social isolation is a huge problem for older adults, and it can be compounded by cognitive impairment. Robots can really provide that companionship, conversation, even opportunities for shared activities, which can help combat loneliness and improve overall well-being.
It's really inspiring to see how assistive robots are being used to empower and support people with cognitive impairments. It's clear that this technology has the potential to make a truly profound difference in their lives.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And as the technology keeps advancing, we can expect even more innovative and impactful applications in the years to come.
This has been an incredible journey so far. We've seen how assistive robots are transforming healthcare, elder care, and the lives of individuals with cognitive impairments. But I know there's even more to explore. What awaits us in part 3 of our deep dive?
Well, in part 3, we'll kind of wrap things up by looking at some of the most exciting emerging trends in assistive robotics and discuss what the future might hold for this incredible field. We'll also delve a bit deeper into some of the ethical and philosophical questions that these technologies raise.
I can't wait. But until then, I'll be pondering that question we talked about earlier. If you could have a robot assistant, what would be its most valuable feature? And what considerations would you prioritize in its design? Welcome back to our deep dive into assistive robotics. In the previous parts, we've covered a lot of ground, from the fundamental differences between automation and assistive robotics to real-world examples of how these robots are already making a difference in healthcare, in elder care, and for people facing cognitive challenges. So now I'm really excited to kind of shift our focus to the future. What's next for this rapidly evolving field?
Well, it's definitely an exciting time to be talking about all of this. And one trend that's already having a major impact is the integration of AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. We touched on this a bit earlier, but it's worth kind of emphasizing just how transformative this is.
Right. We talked about AI's potential in healthcare, especially in diagnostics and personalized treatments. But I'm curious to hear about other applications for these AI-powered assistive robots. What kind of future are we looking at?
Well, imagine robots that go beyond just, following instructions. Imagine robots that can actually learn your preferences, anticipate your needs, and even adapt their behavior based on your emotional state. It's like having a robot companion that truly understands you.
Wow, that sounds almost like science fiction. Are we talking about robots that can read our minds?
Maybe not mind reading, but we're getting closer. AI is enabling robots to become incredibly perceptive. They can analyze your facial expressions, your tone of voice, even your body language to understand your emotions and then, adapt accordingly.
So if a robot senses that you're feeling down, it could try to cheer you up. Or if you're stressed, it could suggest, relaxation techniques or something. That's fascinating.
Exactly. Or imagine a robot that notices you're struggling with a particular task, and it just offers assistance, without you even having to ask. It's all about creating a much more seamless and intuitive interaction between humans and robots.
It's like having a robot friend who's always looking out for you and anticipating your needs. That's pretty amazing. But AI isn't just about emotional intelligence, is it? How else is AI making robots more adaptable and versatile?
You're right. AI's impact goes far beyond just, understanding emotions. Think about robots that can actually learn new tasks, solve problems, and even, improve their own performance over time, all thanks to AI. We're moving away from robots that are programmed for very specific tasks and towards robots that can really adapt and evolve in response to their environment and the people they interact with.
So it's kind of like the difference between a traditional computer program and a learning algorithm. Like the robot isn't just following a fixed set of rules, it's constantly learning and improving.
That's a great way to put it. And this learning capability really opens up a whole new world of possibilities for assistive robotics, right? We can imagine robots that help with a much wider range of tasks, from, everyday chores like cooking and cleaning to more specialized tasks in healthcare, education, even creative fields.
I, for one, welcome our robot chefs and housekeepers.
Yeah.
But beyond these, practical applications, you mentioned earlier that these AI-powered robots kind of raise some interesting philosophical questions. Can you, elaborate on that a little bit?
It's true. I mean, as these robots become more sophisticated and more integrated into our lives, I think we're forced to really confront some pretty fundamental questions about what it means to be human. What is consciousness? What distinguishes human intelligence from artificial intelligence? What are the ethical implications of creating machines that can, think and learn?
These are questions that philosophers and scientists have been grappling with for centuries, but the rapid advancement of AI and robotics is kind of bringing them to the forefront in a whole new way. It's both exciting and a little bit unsettling, isn't it?
It is. On one hand, we have this incredible potential to create machines that can enhance our lives, solve complex problems, and maybe even help us understand ourselves better. But on the other hand, there's this fear of the unknown. What happens if we create machines that are more intelligent than us? Do we lose control? Do we, become obsolete?
Those are some really big questions, and I think it's important to acknowledge those fears, not just dismiss them. But you mentioned earlier that you believe that the future of assistive robotics lies in collaboration, not replacement. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the most optimistic and, in my opinion, the most likely scenario is one where robots and humans really work together, kind of leveraging each other's strengths to create, a more productive, efficient, and fulfilling world for everyone.
So it's about seeing these robots as partners, not threats.
Exactly. Imagine a future where robots handle, the dangerous, the repetitive, the physically demanding tasks, freeing up humans to focus on, creative pursuits, social connections, problem solving, things that require those uniquely human skills like empathy and compassion.
It's a very compelling vision, and it reminds me of those 6 grand challenges that we talked about earlier. Embodiment, personality, empathy, engagement, adaptation, and transfer. All of those kind of point towards robots that are designed to collaborate with humans, not replace them.
Yeah, that's a great connection. And it really highlights the importance of designing robots that are not only, technically sophisticated, but also socially intelligent, ethically responsible, and really aligned with human values.
Speaking of ethics, I think it's crucial to address those concerns head on. We've talked about data privacy, algorithmic bias, the potential for robots to cause harm, intentionally or unintentionally. How do we ensure that assistive robotics develops in a way that's beneficial for all of humanity?
You're absolutely right. We can't just ignore these concerns. I think we need to be really proactive about addressing them. We need clear guidelines and regulations, to ensure that robots are used responsibly, that human safety and well-being are prioritized, and that everyone benefits from these advancements, not just a select few.
So it's about having those tough conversations now involving, ethicists, policymakers, the public, really, in the development and deployment of these technologies.
Exactly. It's about shaping a future where assistive robotics really empowers individuals, strengthens communities, and enhances, our shared human experience. It's about using technology to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Well said. This deep dive into assistive robotics has been incredibly insightful. We've explored the amazing potential of this technology, but we've also, acknowledged the complex challenges and ethical considerations that come with it. It's clear that we're on the brink of, a real technological revolution, and it's really up to all of us to ensure that this revolution leads to a better future for all.
I couldn't agree more. It's a future that's definitely worth working towards, and I'm excited to see what we can achieve together.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of assistive robotics. We hope you've enjoyed the journey and come away with, a deeper understanding of this fascinating and rapidly evolving field.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
And as we sign off, we'll leave you with one final thought. What kind of future do you envision for assistive robotics, and what role will you play in shaping that future?